The attorney continued to resume the arguments in favor of Joan, and the judge asked the attorney, "Where was Joan? Where do you plead for?" The lawyer said that I had a letter sent to me from Joan stating that he was authorized to plead in the appeal cases, so the judge said that he was a fugitive from justice. The lawyer said this matter does not concern me, and it is a matter for the police to arrest him or leave him. Everything that concerns me here is that I am authorized by a person to plead for him even if he is already imprisoned. The two things are the same, whether he is in prison or fleeing from criminal cases, and I plead for free and I have no interest in that. The judge asked the lawyer why he pleaded for him, and he answered him, "I believe in his innocence and I have proof of that." Earlier, the mayor spoke to the lawyer and asked him to visit the chief of police and Philip in prison and ask them about Joan's accident, and this is what has been done. And then Philip looked at the police chief, and the police chief encouraged him to confess the truth of the accident. Philip looked at the lawyer and said to him, "Yes, Joan was not involved in the accident. There was a disagreement between me and Stephen over an amount of money, and one of my men came to the restaurant to end the matter with one of the men who work with Stephen. But he accidentally took Joan's bag and replaced it with the bag of money, and when Joan left the restaurant, we thought that Stephen had defrauded us and the quarrel started. As for Joan, most of the guesswork is what I think he fled, and according to what I think he hid after he had officially been announced that he was a dangerous criminal. We thought he ran away with money or that he had already died, and we did not know that he was still alive." The lawyer said, "Do you testify that in court?" Stephen said, "Yes, I bear witness, but can you reduce the penalty for us at least after our testimony?" The lawyer said, "I do not promise you that, but I will do my best in that." The lawyer had confirmed Joan's innocence after speaking with them, and knew of Philip's cunning and meanness, and doubted that the police chief cooperated with him. On the day of the last trial in Joan's case, the attorney attended, and Andrew was among the attendees as well, who was reporting all the events of the trial to Joan's mobile phone. Philip was brought in chains to the table of witnesses. When the judge entered, all people stood up and the trial began. The lawyer stood up and started the pleading and said, "Dear Judge, to shorten all procedures and to save your time, Honorable Judge, this is the witness who will tell you details that were absent from justice." The judge ordered that the only witness, Philip, in the case to stand and told him, "Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?" Philip swore an oath and then ordered him to testify. Everyone was silent, and the press was present and filming everything Philip said, and the trial was broadcast live because Joan's case was the focus of the city's surprise for a long time. Before the trial, I knew in a few days that the verdict would be pronounced soon. The trial was broadcast on television stations and the people were following this important incident in houses, including the people of the village of Joan. When Philip finished testifying, the judge told Philip, "Did you finish your speech?" Philip said, "I do not have more than I said," so he asked the lawyer the same question, and the lawyer replied, "I do not think that there is anything to say after the witness has word, Your Honor." Then the judge said, "I think we are over. We will make the final verdict in half an hour," and the judge and those with him left. Everyone was living moments of intense anticipation to hear the verdict. Katie began to cry and did not hold herself up, nor did Joan's mother. The judge came and everyone stood up and then said, "The court ruled that Joan was innocent of all the charges against him, and sentenced Philip to an additional 5 years for covering up Joan's innocence and wasting a long time from his life while he was a fugitive from justice. While he was not guilty, he left his university and lost his future." Philip lost consciousness and fainted, and the ambulance was called to take him to the hospital. As for the police chief in the prison, he had collapsed psychologically while he was following the trial in prison and was certain that he and Philip had fallen into the trap again without realizing it. Joan listened to his innocence through Andrew's mobile phone and immediately got out of his house for the first time after his escape without fear. Free and footloose, not afraid of anyone, he called Andrew and told him, "I want you to come as soon as possible." Joan went to the most luxurious hotels in the city and booked the biggest suite, a suite room, and said to him, "Please, I do not want to see anyone until after a day." John lay on the bed and said, "How beautiful is freedom! He called the reception and said I want a reservation at the spa. I need the cleverest workers to clean me, and I need a barber as well as your most skilled workers to do a long massage for me. Our employee told him we have an offer for married couples. Will you get married tonight? He said yes, I want the whole show, dear. In the evening, Joan called Andrew and told him I want you to be here early in the morning, and in the morning, Andrew found Joan at the buffet eating his breakfast with a lot of food in front of him. He said to him, "Are you going to eat all this, Joan?" He said I haven't eaten this way for a long time. Joan went to the import and export company with Andrew and told him where my office is. So he went to it and said to Andrew, "Listen to me well. I don't want anyone to know that I work in the drug trade. This is my company and this is only the source of my money." On that day John called Katie and said to her, "Did I not say that I would be free soon? Did I not promise you that?" Katie was very excited and told him, "Why you did not call me yesterday?" He said I was very tired, Katie. Everyone was eagerly awaiting my trial, but I was dying every second as I waited for the verdict to be pronounced, Joan said while crying. Joan asked Katie to go to his family's house to call them, and this is what Katie did. Joan's mother was talking to him while she was crying with joy for her son, and Joan used to tell her not to cry. "My mother, you will not cry again. I mean, you will not cry again. Please, I want to talk to my brothers and my father," and he talked to them all. Joan and his family members were talking and could not stop their tears. The feelings were mixed between sadness and joy, but he promised them to come as soon as possible. While Joan and Andrew wandered around the city, Andrew said, "Your empire is complete. You rule everything and you are not known for your business, and you are free. Even your company that you opened for import and export is making millions. If you actually put something in your mind it succeeds." Joan began to laugh and said, "Trust me, my friend, all this without you will not to succeed." Andrew replied to him, "Without you, I would not have been a thing. I was vagabond on the streets begging for wine from bars and they would throw me out and sleep in the street." The two stopped at Mrs. Meckel, who embraced Joan as her son, welcomed him and said to him, "You became very handsome. What did you do to yourself? Really looked like a businessman." And she said, "Your trial looked like a movie I could not believe. Do you remember that fateful night in the restaurant? Do you remember all that bullets and dead people around?" He said, "Yes, I remember it moment by moment. It is the most important change in my life. I used to hate that night, but now I like it. You have turned me into the strongest man in the country. All thanks to you, Meckel, and thanks to my friend, Andrew. Listen, Meckel. All this chain of restaurants belong to you as a gift from me to you." Meckel was happy and did not believe, and she said to Joan, "Trust me, Joan. I am alone and I do not need all this money, I am only happy to work with you." Meckel began to cry and Joan did not expect her reaction, so he said to her, as he pushed her hand away from her face and wiped her tears, "You deserve more than that. Please take everything. I want you to buy a new home and adopt a child to raise that fills your lonely world and renew your life with this big change." Meckel said, "Do you expect that this will make me happy?" And he assured her that. She said, "Yes, I agree with you." She rose and wiped her tears and said, "Why is sadness? They are days of joy. Wait, I will bring some drink to hold a small celebration of this joyful occasion." Joan asked Andrew to go to an important place to put an end to the latest revenge tendency in his heart. So Andrew took him to prison and told him, "I want to visit Philip and the chief of the police." Andrew laughed and said to him, "Now I start reading your thoughts. You want to take revenge on them that you are free and they are prisoners." He said, "Yes, speak to the policeman to bring them on the pretext of visiting." The policeman entered Philip's cell and said to him, "Get up for a visit. Whoever is going to visit me? No one has come to visit me at all." He said, "Come with me and you will see." Likewise, he said to the chief of police. The two went with the policeman until they entered to Joan and Andrew. They had an iron window between them, and the policeman went and the four met. John said, "Do you know me?" Philip and the former police chief said, "No." He said, "I'm Joan." Both of them were astonished with him, and both of them began badmouthing him, the mayor and the lawyer, and Joan looked at Andrew and laughed. He looked at them and said, I didn't come to you to hear you, you came to listen to me. You mute until you hear what I'm going to say. Everything that happened to you will not equal what you will hear now. I am Joan, who stole money and drugs that night and made gangs fight and went out in front of everyone, and no one could know where I was, and I formed the biggest gang in the city. I expect you both know X well, right? The two were amazed, almost not believing what they were hearing, and Joan continued, do you know X? And they did not reply to him, so he said, naturally, you do not respond. I am the one who united with the mayor and ousted you both. Do you remember the day you were on the street intending to give the mayor a bribe? I ordered the intelligence men to arrest you and accuse you of this bribery. I am the one who killed Stephen with this hand, and Joan raised his hand. I am the one who burned your gang headquarters and made you look like the stronger. And united with my gang, and I was able to kill you, but I chose to run away to complete the plan. I am the one who sent the lawyer to you to confess my innocence and succeeded to delude you that you will get out of prison through your close friend, Nelson, Philip. I am the one who was watching all your communications and control you, and you don't know, did you know, Chief of the Police and Philip, that I could have killed you without anyone knowing? As if it was an accidental accident? Both of you. I did not choose this destiny for you. I chose and liked to live this destiny. You know that you did not sin and accusations were fabricated against you exactly as you did to me, and you are not able to absolve yourselves before the courts. The families, your family, and all your friends, as you did to me and made me a victim of your dirty deeds. Philip began to lose his temper and hit his head in the iron and did not stop, and Joan laughed and told him to hit harder. You will not go out, you will rot in prison like a mouse. As for the police chief, he tried to hold himself up, but he could not. He tried to walk and return to his cell, but he lost his balance and fell on the ground unconscious. Joan left prison and said to Andrew when he started driving and said with joy, did I not tell you, Joan, that you will be a witness to that? I want you to hurry. I feel that I have already been pronounced the verdict of my innocence by the judge. Hurry up, come as fast as you can. I am joyous, Andrew. On the way, Joan was looking at the trees in the woods, and the trees were a single green color in Joan's eye. He remembered his homeless life in the forest. These incidents were passing in front of his eyes as a quick tape which was stopped Joan's tears which he tried to hide from Andrew. Joan was living a luxurious life. He bought a very large house and cars, and he used to sit most of his day after returning from his company in front of the swimming pool in the backyard of his home, and he tries to spend his time in constant joy, and he already had that. Andrew was also still running the gang business that had been strengthened in the east and center of the city, and the business was managed exactly as it was before Joan left his isolation. And Joan emptied his new company, which became one of the most successful companies in the city, and Joan used it for money laundering processes that he used to gain from drugs. Joan agreed with Andrew to precede him to the village and to prepare a reception party for Joan in 2 days, a big party attended by all the families, and prepare the largest buffets open to all, and Andrew went before him to the village and arranged for the ceremony. Joan attended the date of the celebration in a luxury car with a driver, and Joan was behind him in the car. He got off and was greeted by his father, who received him with a warm welcome, as well as his mother, siblings, and the rest of the village, and he was looking for Katie among all the people. She was standing among all the people. She was sweating and could hardly walk. Joan glimpsed Harold as if the world stopped when he saw her and did not feel except he walked involuntarily for her and greeted her. Katie was as if she was injected with an anesthetic that Joan greeted her warmly while she lost her feeling and said to Joan, "You smell good, your clothes are beautiful, you wore like the clothes of the people of the city that we see on the TV only. Do you still know me, Joan?" Joan took her hand and walked with her to the venue of the ceremony and gave her a seat her next to him and his father and his mother as well. And Andrew was the speaker in the speech ceremony and welcomed everyone on the occasion of Joan's innocence. Then he said to everyone, "Let me welcome, on your behalf, Mr. Joan to deliver his speech." Joan stood up and improvised a speech in which he said, "Dear members of the village, I know that I have disheartened you and have embarrassed you with the rest of the neighboring villages. You will not know how I felt at the time, and you will not believe it, You will not know what it means to be innocent and cannot prove your innocence. Nights have passed and I am thinking a lot about you and how I can help you, but I cannot. You will not know the meaning of what I say until you live these moments." Joan's mother and some of the older women were crying to hear Joan speak with this overwhelming sadness over him. Joan continued his impromptu speech saying, "Believe me, I tried to help you a lot. But I could not until the opportunity came, and I dug this well for you that solved all your problems and the problems of other villages, I believe." And Joan asked Andrew, "Isn't it, Andrew?" He replied to him, "Yes, it is beyond everyone's need, Mr. Joan." Then Joan turned to everyone and said, "It is a celebration and joy. I do not want to remember the days and nights of sadness with you." Before I finish my sad speech, Joan said it with a laugh. "Before I finish it, it is good for me to presage you with something that will affect every house of the village. Are you ready?" Everyone was silent and looked at Joan and said to them, "My gift to every house in the village will be $100,000 without return for you to do whatever you want, with which you repair your houses, buy livestock with it or anything else." Everyone fell silent without speaking, and silence was the master of the situation until one of the men stood up and raised his hat and threw it up while shouting loudly. And then all men and women stood and started throwing their hats as the man did in a fierce screaming. All of that, and Katie looked at Joan with eagerness and enthusiasm. Joan left with his family members in the car to their house and said to Katie that I will meet you the next day and say goodbye to her and with his family members. Joan entered the house and looked at it eagerly from the inside, and his mother joined him and said, "What is wrong with you, Joan?" He said, "My mother, I did not expect to see him and see you again. I almost lived homeless for the rest of my life, my mother," and started turning left and right while saying, "I missed this place, where is my bedroom?" So he went to it quickly and lay on his bed, and he said to his mother, "I want to sleep quietly tonight, my mother, that I have a tendency of evil and homelessness that will not fade away except by sleeping with you tonight. And feeling that I am living some of the days of my previous life, I want to wake up in the morning and all of my family members are in front of me instead of waking up and finding no one in front of me for the past days." The next day at the breakfast table, Joan said to his father, "Daddy, I slept so deeply. I haven't slept like this for a long time. Feeling of the family's feeling is a beautiful feeling, Dad." His father told him, "What are your plans for this day?" He said, "I want to see Katie, but before that I want all of you on a very important topic." His mother said, "Please do not open up any issue with us that has problems, we have tired of them, and now we are happy with you." Joan said, "On the contrary, you will be happy with what I say indeed." Joan said, "I bought a big house in the city that suffices for all of us, and I have a large company now in the city that generates big money for me. You will not need to live in the village after today, until your herd of cows will not need it. My father, you will not need to get up in the morning to take care of this herd all day long. Everything is ready in city life, and you, mother, will not get tired after today. Everything will be prepared for you and you are comfortable. Do nothing at all. But you, my brothers, will live the life of city dwellers. There are amusement parks for the little ones and schools you are not used to it, and much more awaits you." Joan's family members rejoiced, except that the father did not show this joy and was afraid of this sudden change of the family. Joan looked at him and said to him, "Trust me, Dad, I will not let you down and I want you to live a better life. Money is there and everything is arranged for, and we will not sell this house. We will come to him from time to time if you want." Joan told them that was the first topic. "As far as I am concerned, here is this piece of news. I want to get married." His mother rose and said to him, "What do you say later? It is one of my greatest hopes for you to get married and settle down, Joan. Who is this girl who was able to steal your heart? She must be worthy of this heart," she said with a smile. Joan said, "She's not from the city, she's from here in the village, and it's Katie." The mother became as happy as she said, "Yes, this is someone who deserves to marry her. We know her well, and she is really ideal for you." Joan remained silent for a little time, and his mother said, "What's wrong with you? What is on your mind?" He said, "I'm not sure she agreed to marry me. I'll make it up today. I will go out, see you later." Joan called Katie and she answered on the mobile phone. She said, "How not, and it is the one which make me hear your voice whenever I need to listen to you." Joan said, "We will not need this phone after today." Katie said how it would be. Joan, he said, "We will not separate after today. I want to see you now." Katie came and Joan did not wait much and then said, "Will you marry me, Katie?" Katie began to hold her mouth as she caught her breath, which was almost interrupted by the intensity of her joy as she said, "Do you speak honestly?" Joan said, "Yes, I want to marry you with all my feelings. Please accept me. We will move to the city. We will live a carefree life." After seeing my father, mother, siblings and being pronounced innocent, I still feel scattered inside me. This scattering will not be overwhelmed without uniting with you at one home. Katie said, "I agree with you, Joan, and this is my wish as well, and it will come true." After nearly 2 days, the family moved to the city in their new home, and they lived a carefree life in it. The children adapted to schools in the city, and Joan's father used to go with him sometimes to his company. Joan's marriage date was fixed and arranged for it to be a legendary marriage attended by dignitaries in the city, including the mayor of the city. The marriage was in one of the big hotels, and the press was present for this great incident. In everyone's eyes, Joan was a national hero who was oppressed and was the victim of drug gangs. Justice proved that he was innocent and did not deserve all these charges. Invitations were open to all, and this incident was broadcast on screens of television, and it was speech of the whole country, not the city alone. Joan was sitting with Katie in the marriage next to each other, and the well-wishers came successively to congratulate them on the marriage. The mayor and some prominent personalities attended, and the mayor was presenting Joan as an influential and useful person for society, and everyone looked at Joan and wondered if this person held any government position. After things stabilized after marriage, Joan sat with Andrew and told him a surprising piece of news, that I want to dismantle all my gangs and I do not want drugs to be existed in the city. Andrew was surprised and said that the business has reached its peak of profit-taking and that there is no competitor for us in the city. We are hardly counting the profits from these processes. Joan said, "I know that. You should meet with Kevin, Michael and Stenley and tell them he wants it." Joan said to Andrew, "Listen, Andrew, that our import and export company is achieving great successes not only in the city level but also in the whole country level." Andrew said, "Yes it is." Andrew replied to him that all the gang members will work in the new branches of the company, so I intend to extend the company's business outside the city. I will not find the most efficient and reliable of my gangsters. I will inform them of this matter. Joan continued to speak to Andrew by saying, "It is drugs that made me live a life of homelessness in the woods, and it is the one who created all these conflicts. It is the source of evil that once has existed in a place. You see, murder, and injustice and homelessness are widespread. I want to erase it from the city. I will build hospitals for recovering from drugs and I will provide jobs for all recovered people. I do not want gangs or drug sellers in the streets. I want the life of every drug addict to be transformed into a straightforward life. I want scholarships for every recovering person who intends to complete his studies. I want you to do what you can to achieve this goal." The three leaders were surprised by this request and said, "This is what the leader X would like to all of us." The three leaders until that moment did not know Joan, and Joan was keen that none of them knew him in order to preserve his reputation. They all agreed. The three leaders began to visit the import and export company to get acquainted with the progress of the business. Andrew also wanted them to be in a training course to learn about this new business which was new for them, but they did not take long to find out about things in the company. It is funny that the three leaders held the same positions they used to work in the drug business. Kevin took the position of vice president to end company affairs in customs at the border and logistical matters. Michael took the position of vice president in charge of security, safety and the environment, and as for Stenley was vice president for the distribution of materials in the country. The success of the three deputies continued as they were successful in running the three gangs. The lives of the three leaders have changed, as if they had not lived the life of gangs, as they began to drive new cars, and each of them has his own secretary and a car park on which his position is written. Indeed, everyone's life has changed. The gang members have already been dismantled and all the weapons and drugs in the city have been disposed of. so that the new police chief met with the mayor and the mayor was telling him you should pay attention, as the drugs and gangs are a lot in the city. The chief of the police was astonished and said to him, all the period of my service in the police, I did not see a city which was free from drugs and gang members like this city. The mayor did not believe this news, but he was silent and did not tell the police chief the information he had in this regard. John continued to open hospitals for recovery from addiction throughout the country, and he used to call these hospitals by the same name as his new company, Hope, and addicts were flocking to these hospitals. And scholarships were provided to those who succeeded in them, and some of the recuperative who were proved to be clean from drug addiction were offered jobs in the company. The name of Joan and his company were associated with these charitable works until it became the talk of the press and television screens, and television interviews were held about Joan, his hospitals, scholarships, and his containment of drug addicts and how he managed to make his city almost drug-free with his awareness program and many hospitals. The friendly meetings were held between the mayor, Andrew and Joan, and these meetings did not stop at the mayor's house or office. Even that Joan's wife and Andrew's wife visited the mayor's wife from time to time and held simple parties, and those parties were attended by high-class wives, and everyone talked about Andrew's wife and Joan's wife. And they were presented to everyone as women of velvet society, and they were envied of this social position and the successful happy life they lead. Joan was able to increase his successes as he is now the focus of economic, political and charitable attention in the country. He is presented and known as the little billionaire who owns the largest export and import company and the owner of the largest charitable hospital chain that provides free treatment to drug addicts as well as containing them after recovery with jobs or scholarships. One night, while Joan, Andrew and the mayor were staying up at the mayor's house, and after they were chatting and laughing, the mayor put down his cup after he stopped laughing, saying, "Here, my friends, is an idea that has been circulating in my head for a long time." Andrew and Joan were silent and the mayor did not have much patience until he said, "You, Joan, have a great reputation in all parts of the country, that I hardly attend any political, economic or social event without being asked about you. I do not hide you, I have become jealous of you. You are in my city and everyone is following your news more than me." And the mayor continued to laugh and then said, "But you really deserve this reputation. You did what the police in the city could not do. You ended the drug trade and made drug addicts good members of society. It is a tremendous work, don't you agree with me? I admit before you now that I have personally failed in this issue and I am very impressed by this achievement." John said, "I did not really do this to have a good reputation, that I did it because I was the main reason for selling these drugs, and I am now correcting what I did wrongly. And believe me, I will not sell these drugs, but I had no other way to take revenge and prove my innocence except in this way. I did not want this destiny, but it was obligatory for my situation throughout the previous period." Then the mayor said, "Please do not interrupt, let me continue." And the mayor praised Joan that he was really an unusual leadership figure, and if he wanted to do something, he would have it. Then Andrew said, "What is the occasion of all this talk, Mayor? As if you want to say something and do not know where to start." Then the mayor said, "Yes. I am on the verge of retirement because I am old, as you know," and the mayor began to laugh, "and my bosses asked me to nominate who will hold my place. I know that this choice is routine and they will not take it into account. It is a simple respect for being the mayor, and the correct one is that they will appoint whoever they want, but I know that one person, if I appoint him, they will agree without hesitation. It's Joan." Everyone fell silent, and Andrew looked at Joan, smiling, and saying, "Shall I tell you soon, Honorable, the Mayor?" Joan told the mayor, "It is a great honor for me, but it is a big responsibility." The mayor said that, "I know that, but you are the only one who really deserves this position. You have a mentality that understands gang business. Nobody can sell drugs or commit crimes. You really have this power and management that will certainly enable you to succeed." Meanwhile, Joan's economic and social successes was increasing, and his good reputation was increasing in succession, and his social life with his wife, accompanied by his family, was very good. And his father visited his friends in the village from time to time to spend some time with his wife. The life of Joan and his family was beautifully harmonious, and Joan was not disturbed by anything. Joan was talking to Andrew about the mayor's offer and that he was afraid that he would occupy himself with more business on him and that he did not really need it. Andrew was telling him that your new reformist approach in society would be 100% successful if he took this position. And let us see what the mayor will do. Can he convince them of this position whether it is yours or not? Joan said, right, let me see, and I will not occupy my mind with it. If they agree, you will take over the management of the company, and I will be completely devoted to this new position. After a period of time, the mayor summoned Joan at his home, and he was alone, and he foretoken him a good piece of news, which is the approval of the higher authorities to appoint Joan to the post of the mayor. And they unanimously agreed to this appointment and said that he deserves this appointment because of his good social stances and his excellent reputation in various fields. A grand ceremony was held, attended by officials from the supreme authority, and Joan was installed in this position after taking the oath to work with all effort, diligence and devotion to serve the nation and society. A new phase of Joan's life began, and he must prove his success in it, which was Joan's only obsession at the time, but he was certain of that success. As he was the one who ran 3 drug gangs and these gangs did not know or met Hammond, he succeeded efficiently, and managed with all merit the task of eliminating 3 corrupt people in the city, chief of police, Philip and Stephen, as well as practicing the management of his company, Hope. He managed to make it the largest company in the country, so the position of mayor is very simple for him. Joan was keen to achieve his political goals, in which he had started practicing the arts of his administration, and he was attending big political events and rising with the successes that are evident in his city, which has become famous for its stability and lack of crime, until most of the citizens from other cities dream of owning houses and living in this quiet city. Joan was interested in the level of education which he paid the most attention, and eliminating suspicious gatherings by young people. He was supported by the police chief, who was personally following up with Joan the course of things. Joan was troubled by economic issues through the budgets that came to him from the state. The thing that always stood between him and the implementation of some development plans was the few budgets that he could not spend except on the salaries of employees and some other few things only. Joan met one of the most senior statesmen and proposed to him a proposal that would solve this dilemma after this official was displeased with Joan with his many financial requests. This proposal was that we privatize the business sector in the city to the private sector. They rent the special facilities of the state. They run them and pay for renting these facilities, except for the police and the judiciary, of course. As for the rest, will be rented, and Joan will benefit from the state budget, as well as from the rent of these facilities. This official took a thought and said that this is a new idea and it is worth trouble of thinking, so Joan immediately stood up and said, I will help you in this matter, and brought out a file for him with all the studies related to this idea. Then this official looked at Joan and said, it seems that you are prepared for everything, and this is not just an idea. He said, Sir, if I were not sure of its success, I would not have entrusted myself with coming to you, talking and wasting your time as well. After a period of days in which Joan worked as a mayor, his secretary opened an envelope addressed to Joan informing him that his project had already been approved. Joan was overjoyed and did not lose time in implementing his promising plan. The official announcement of this project began in the official newspapers and on television, and a day was set for opening envelopes and establishing projects for merchants who have long experience in this field. The day of the envelopes opening came at a ceremony for Joan and the elders of the city, and the projects were established. Schools were rented out to merchants, government dispensaries, post offices, public utilities, parks, and many of these government facilities came under the management of the private sector. Joan's stress of management of the city was relieved, and the workers in these government facilities did not lose their jobs, and the services provided to citizens became better in stages, and for all that, the city took advantage of the rent of these facilities instead of the sums that were spent on them, instead of the financial amounts spent on them in form of salaries of workers, maintenance and so on. Joan's successes in his plan began to be realized, and he became to receive the state budget that is allocated to his city in addition to the rent of those facilities, which is estimated to be great. The livelihood of citizens improved in the city after entering the private sector to manage most of its facilities, and job opportunities increased with the new situation, and after it was a normal city. Real estate prices increased to an insane degree, as the general environment in the city has become an attractive environment for living, investment and raising children because it is almost free of crime. New residential schemes began to increase in the city, public services increased, and contracts between the mayor and investors increased. Even children's amusement parks became a feature of the city. Investors dreamed of working in this city until the modern, developed side overwhelmed the reputation of the old city, which was famous for drugs and gangs. The country's top administration realized that the old mayor was right when he recommended Joan take over the position after him and asked Joan to deliver a lengthy speech presenting his plan in running the city. In front of a large delegation that includes all mayors in the country, and then a senior official came forward and said, "I am pleased to convey orders of the head of the state to implement Joan's plan in all the cities of the country." Then everyone stood and started applauding Joan. Joan knew that his plan would succeed, he believed in it and in his abilities to implement it. But he did not expect that it would resonate in the rest of the country, and it received all this welcome. Joan was in moments of his summit success, and he was standing in complete highness and has a prestige among the attendants. His speech was improvised without a piece of paper, he was reading what was written on it. He had all confidence and faith in every word that came out of his mouth, and when any one of the attendants asked him a question, he quickly answered and gave him numbers to prove his words, and everyone was astonished by the meeting and Joan's administration of the city. What attracted the attendees was a topic in which Joan spoke about unemployment and said that if young people do not find jobs through which they can marry and form families that they are afraid on, then they will turn to criminals and drugs, and cities will be an easy hotbed for them. But the general environment for people is suitable for their presence. Joan is a young man who has repeated successes, from a superior student to managing drug gangs with extreme professionalism to a seasoned politician. And in all these stages, he was an example to be followed and difficult to be imitated.